Hey everybody, I'm Matt Littrell. You might remember me from this podcast back in August of last year, shortly after I was fired by Amazon for organizing at our warehouse with the Amazon Labor Union. Afterwards, I dealt with quite a struggle.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Working People, a podcast about the lives, jobs, dreams, and struggles of the working class today. Brought to you in partnership with In These Times magazine and the Real News Network, produced by Jules Taylor, and made possible by the support of listeners like you. So as you guys heard, we've got a familiar voice back on the show today. If you guys go back in the archives, you will find our first interview with Matt Littrell, who we are happy to have back on the show today, although I wish that we were reconnecting under better circumstances. But we'll link to that first interview we did with Matt back in August of 2022, where we were talking to Matt literally a week after he was fired by Amazon management at the warehouse he was working at, which was in Campbellsville, Kentucky. And Matt was really kind of becoming a prominent voice and face of this effort to organize Amazon facilities in Kentucky. Right, this was fresh off the historic Amazon Labor Union union victory on Staten Island. And we talked to Matt in that episode about, his work there at Amazon, what it was like in that facility, what the organizing efforts had been. And then, we talked about how the company fired him, allegedly for, quote unquote, performance issues. But it had all of the trappings and hallmarks of, retaliation for engaging in protected concerted activities, i.e. organizing in the workplace, which is your right as a worker. And if your boss retaliates against you for it, you are supposed to have, a sort of system of accountability, right, to help you defend your rights and seek, redress through the National Labor Relations Board, all that good stuff. You guys know all about that. We cover it all the time here on the show. But we wanted to bring Matt back on, right, to talk about, everything that's happened since then, right? As you heard Matt say, it's not been an easy road, and sadly, this is very often the case, right? I mean, this is what you guys hear us preach all the time on this show, right? That, we can't just get excited about, a new Starbucks store unionizing somewhere else and forget about all the fired Starbucks workers, all the people like in Ithaca who had their unionized stores closed, or Seattle, or all the people who are getting descheduled and losing their health insurance because of it. All the people who, maybe voted successfully for a union, whether that be at Amazon or Starbucks or Chipotle, and have their stores closed, have the company not bargain in good faith, never reach a first contract. We can't just, claim early victories here. We got to see these struggles through, and we got to take care of one another for, in general, in principle, for time until time immemorial, right? That's the only way that we can do it. But, in this instance, we also got to make sure that, to the folks that we talk to the struggles that we get invested in, we gotta stay invested in those struggles, and we got to stay committed to our brothers and sisters out there. And in that vein, man, I want to kind of toss things back to you and sort of give you the floor again, and ask if you could maybe start by refreshing listeners' memories a little bit, like maybe just we don't have to go through the whole kind of saga that we went into when we had you on the show last August, but maybe just give folks a little refresher on your situation there at Amazon, the work you were doing there, the organizing you were doing there, the conditions of your firing, and then let's talk about everything that's happened since, because it's been quite a roller coaster, as you said.
Yeah, it has. And I appreciate you having me on today. Like you said, no organizer left behind. And that means we have to be there for each other. And so, at the Amazon facility, we started organizing in 2021, roughly a year before I was fired. I didn't know the Amazon Labor Union back then, but I was starting to get connected to the movement. So, in around December of that year, we started organizing with one union. That was the machinists and aerospace workers. They helped us build our initial organizing committee, but they helped us really devise a strategy. I joined the safety committee. I joined the shift specific safety team, GIMBA. So I was sanctioned by the employer to talk to employees about protected concerted activities, which are, working conditions and their grievances around those working conditions and all that stuff. So I find it very ironic that I was terminated for doing the same thing. However, I put myself in a spot where, as an Amazon employee, you can't talk to many people. I put myself in a spot where I could talk to absolutely everybody. So I had the perfect organizing role. And so we gained a lot of steam. The Amazon labor movement was really all behind Amazon Labor Union, full steam ahead. And so when we got really big and when we had the opportunity to meet Chris Smalls, Derek Palmer, the executive committee of the Amazon Labor Union, we joined up. And, we didn't like being micromanaged by a huge union that was very bureaucratic, that didn't really have people in Kentucky to help us. So we joined up with ALU, started getting our card signed, started organizing for that election because we thought we were ready. But I was facing retaliation. I started getting these write-ups for supposed productivity. I had been there a year. I consider myself a professional at that job. I was really great at what I was tasked with. But the working conditions were never addressed. So we continued agitating around things like it being way too hot in that warehouse, things like overstuffed bins that caused injuries to many employees, and of course our pay, because Amazon didn't pay worth a crap. But a lot of people thought it was better than the median in the area. But I started experiencing all of this retaliation, and in August, those write-ups got to the last one, and I was subsequently terminated. After that, like immediately, I pressed charges with the NLRB, adding that to all of my previous retaliation charges: retaliation, intimidation, surveillance, calling the freaking cops on us like they did in June of last year. And that's sort of where we left off with the show.
Yeah, I think that was about it. And man, I'm just I'm so angry hearing all of this, and it's like I'm so sorry that you've been going through this, because again, this is like, yeah, this is like what it looks like in the trenches, right? And this is how low management will stoop to, stop workers from exercising their rights. It is not an equal playing field. It never is, right? That is why we have, the strength in numbers mentality about unions, because otherwise, like, this is how they pick us off. This is how the laws are stacked in their favor. The enforcement of those laws is stacked in the boss's favor. And these are the real human consequences of that power imbalance that exists in workplaces around the country and around the world, so on and so forth. So, it's just such a bullshit kind of situation to be in, first and foremost, And I wanted to just acknowledge that, right? That we were starting from a place of, Matt was fired for exercising his rights, right? Like that's the whole point of rights, is that, that you have them, that you can exercise them, that they are inalienable, not that your manager can decide whether or not you get to exercise them, right? So tell us about what happened next. Like, tell us about the kind of developments since then. I mean, how have you personally been doing, and like has there been any movement in the effort to sort of hold Amazon accountable for this?
Yeah, I can definitely go on about that. So like immediately after, my firing, I I applied for unemployment a few days later. One of the first things Amazon did to try and fuck with me was trying to deny my unemployment benefits, and you know they would keep appealing it every time I would I would file for a payments. So they were keeping me from getting that for half a year. I didn't start getting unemployment payments until like December, but I got it all in one lump sum. So it was already a rough start to the journey of being unemployed. But then Kentucky went ahead and passed a law that said you could only get 12 weeks of unemployment that went into effect January of this year. So basically I was cut off again in March after only getting a little bit. And I've applied for so many jobs. People think that unemployed people are lazy or something like that. In southern states, you have to apply for a whole bunch of jobs, and then you have to prove it that you're applying for those jobs to get anything. But once your name is all over the news for what you did, as far as organizing goes, it makes it hard to get a regular job after that. And I was thankful to continue to have the opportunities to organize at Amazon. I mentored a lot of employees, people who were asking me, like, hey, how do we organize? So I was just helping these employees go through the same journey as a new person in the labor movement that I went through. And it was an honor to be able to teach people how to organize and get them connected to the right resources. And doing this as just an independent person, not working with anybody at that point, really. And then I got involved with a disability justice for Amazon workers campaign. It was through United for Respect, 501c3 organization. And for that, they organize Amazon stuff around the country. They even are really involved in Atlanta, where they're supporting the union efforts there. But this disability justice advocacy was on behalf of my partner, who is an injured Amazon employee because of the working conditions there. One of the big thing that we did, we went to DC to do some lobbying. We talked to all kinds of politicians, representatives. We were working with the Help Committee of the Senate, who has their investigation into Amazon that is going on. And it was the only campaign of its kind that currently existed. Nobody else was focusing on Amazon employees that are disabled. Nobody was really organizing around better accommodations and making this process fair and equitable for everybody. It was a real privilege to be able to do that, and we made some headway. We started making so much progress in these investigations, getting employees in touch with the Help Committee to share their stories about what it's like to be disabled at Amazon, and for your accommodations to be rejected and to face discrimination because of that. And then another thing that I was really excited about was the opportunity to get involved with Starbucks organizing as a customer. Well, not really a customer. I don't live by a Starbucks, but you know what I mean. Somebody who doesn't work there. Since I was a part of the DSA, and I saw that the Labor Commission was working with Starbucks on these customer solidarity events, Starbucks Workers United, I decided to host a couple of these solidarity events just in the next town over in Danville, Kentucky. We made a really big impact. It's sort of more of a progressive town by Kentucky standards. You know, it's a college town, liberal arts college, and that was an excellent show of solidarity. And unfortunately, soon after our first events, I started having to go back and deal with the NLRB. The NLRB, you know, we had been in this process for more than a year by then. I had the appointed attorney by the board that was representing me. I had him switched over to new attorneys. Just in about February of this year. And then these attorneys didn't really know a whole lot. They just knew everything that was in my affidavits that was handed over to them, all that good stuff. And they didn't even meet me until like a month out from my hearing. So that's when they started meeting with me to get prepared for the hearing, go over everything, all that good stuff. And then in September 9th, we had my hearing at a little courtroom that wasn't at all intimidating. It was like a fiscal court. So it's honestly just like the back room, like the back of a courtroom type of thing. It's just...
So it's not like full on Law and Order style.
No, not at all. I was surprised at how... You know, I thought I was going into Law and Order, right? So that's why I was surprised at the location and stuff. But it was myself and my counsel, and then Amazon's counsel that were there, and of course a judge. And you should have seen the look on their faces when Amazon's counsel sat down and everything, and they saw that huge stack of evidence that we gathered.
Oh baby, I wish like that. See, that should be a Law and Order episode. In the socialist utopia, I want to watch a Law and Order where every case is about like going after union busters or like, you know, environment destroying companies and stuff like that. Like I would watch the shit out of that.
Yeah. Up until that point, up until like the last couple of days before the hearing, I thought that, you know, it was just going to be a slog fest going to trial and stuff like that. Essentially, I would have had to try and prove that they were manipulating the algorithm, so like manually doing all of this stuff to me instead of having this excuse that, oh, well, you weren't retaliated against because it was just the algorithm, and the algorithm doesn't discriminate in our system. And so that was intimidating to do for sure. Because, you know, these judges, I don't know. A lot of judges don't understand how TikTok works, right? And now I gotta learn how to understand an algorithm that Amazon uses myself when that's not even publicly available. It's all hidden in Amazon's cloud computing sector, their AWS. They're more of a cloud computing company than a retailer by a long shot. That's where all their profits are. So yeah, I thought it was going to be this slog fest. I was nervous going into it, but you know, I was tenacious as hell too. I was ready for this fight in court. I know they were just pussyfooting around everything. When we would subpoena management, they would they would, of course, object to that subpoena and then ask for more time to provide evidence, stuff like that. They subpoenaed me a few days before the hearing. So they wanted me to provide like an extensive amount of information to them on the day of the hearing, but only gave me like 3 days to do that, which was crazy. So since I didn't really have labor lawyers that could give me actual advice, NLRB counsel, who are appointed to you, they'll be there for you every step of the way, all that good stuff, but they're not going to give you legal advice, not at all. They're gonna try and seem like they're not coaching you for what you do, right? So they can't do stuff in the way that an actual attorney could. So with all that came me having to use, unorthodox things, because unions, you talk to a union, you try to get in touch with their labor lawyer, all that stuff. They're like, we're not going to represent you because you're not a member of our union. But you can go over here and pay $300 an hour to this attorney if you really need an attorney. That's how much labor lawyers cost. That's still so freaking expensive. I obviously could not afford that, not even close to being afford that. I was struggling to keep a roof over my head. So I had to use AI. I was using like Chat GPT to direct me to NLRB archives and cases and all this stuff that I could study on my own. And I was using, this stuff to learn how to like file legal documents in case I had to actually do that on my own. Which, you always have to check the accuracy of AI, but I was keen to that. I'm like, okay, just point me in the right direction. I'll go look at it. I'll go make my decision about it. Because everything at the NLRB it doesn't matter what their policy and stuff is. Honestly, everything is case law. That essentially means that they're going to start using all of these cases to validate any decisions that they make going forward. So they're always going to look at a previous case to justify how the procedure goes going forward. And they did that. At the hearing, they were talking about Starbucks cases, all that stuff, to justify the fact that Amazon and I had come to a settlement agreement. It was unilateral. I signed off on it. The union signed off on it. Well, Seth Goldstein, the union's lawyer, who, for all of his merits, like, he's a great guy. He was there for me the whole time, but I knew that he was so freaking busy working 8 hours a week, working on 80 hours a week, working on all these different cases everywhere, that I couldn't depend on him to answer every single question I had. But yeah, he signed off on it, and the judge signed off on it, of course. Unilateral settlements, but as a matter of policy, the NLRB decided to have their general counsel object to it because of arbitrary language, essentially. It didn't include a default clause, which is something that would allow the NLRB to prosecute the charged party in the events that they don't follow through with the settlement agreement. And then there was they objected because it was sort of like a baby thing too, like a tantrum, because like the judge had not properly weighed the general counsel's position. And then the last thing they said was they tried to say that the clause of confidentiality was too broad, but actually it was just very narrow. Like, the only thing I can talk about in the settlement is I can't reveal the financial terms. That's it. I just can't tell anybody that. That is very narrow. That is, I mean, nothing that nothing that restricts you is ever reasonable, right? But from Amazon's point of view, it would be pretty embarrassing if I revealed that.
Right. I mean, I mean, this is how they like to deal with most of their problems, right? Is all these companies just settle or slap an NDA on folks, basically keep the ugly side out of public view so that they can maintain this sort of public image and kind of keep all that dirty laundry out of public sight. But so just to kind of clarify though, for folks listening, what this essentially boils down to is that you and Amazon reached a settlement. You all signed off on it. It was signed off by the judge, but then the National Labor Relations Board General Counsel appealed that settlement or has challenged that settlement on the grounds that the confidentiality clause is problematic, and that there's another part of it, there's a sort of kind of technicality that they're taking issue with because. But I mean, in effect, what's happening is that the NLRB is keeping you from getting your money. But are they doing this? Are they challenging this because they're worried that Amazon's trying to sort of if they can get you to sign off on something that has broader implications for other workers who find themselves in this situation? Is I guess, are they worried about that there's going to be a case law that could emerge from this somehow that would be ultimately damaging? I guess I'm just trying to sort of understand the rationale here for folks who are listening.
So the only reason I was really given is that they protect the public's rights, essentially. So the public's rights are greater than mine, and if I sort of have to fall on the sword and go through this process all over again, then that's what they're going to do as a matter out of their policy. So yeah, they're worried about sort of the precedent that it sets, but everything I was going to my actual hearing for was just my retaliation experience. So again, it's I just don't see where they ever had a valid reason to object, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, and then I mean, that's so tough, right? I mean, because again, I just knowing what I know about the case from having talked to you about it, knowing that there is a settlement, knowing how, as you've described, you've been really kind of going through really hellish shit since then, because losing your job can be devastating, and having to go through all of this process, especially without a union lawyer to help you, or the resources. Yeah, none of who among us can go just fucking pay $300 an hour to sort of put together our legal defense, right? I mean, it just really highlights how stacked the whole system is in favor of one side over the other. And it's tough because I was just interviewing people who work at the NLRB a couple weeks ago on this show, before what was then an impending government shutdown. And I think it was a really important interview, because I don't think I've heard anyone interview NLRB staffers before a government shutdown about what that is going to mean to them, what it's going to mean for the caseloads that they've got, what it's going to mean for the union election dates that were going to fall after that potential government shutdown. Now, the shutdown was temporarily averted. We'll see if that sticks. But even so, like we talked about on that episode, it's like, yeah, the NLRB does really important work. It is perpetually understaffed. It is like, you know, a constant political football. And, you know, it's been sort of strangled over the past decade without a budgetary increase until like last year. And, you know, so like, and I talk to workers all of the time who, like, you know, need and rely on the NLRB to actually enforce labor law, to hold companies accountable for violating workers' rights, yada yada yada. Like, that's all important. But like, still, you know, we gotta like be able to kind of walk and chew gum at the same time. We gotta like still understand like the kind of human costs of the way that this process works and the inefficiencies therein. I mean, because that's essentially causing you, after all this long drawn out process from getting from before you got fired, right? The retaliation, the write ups, then getting fired, Amazon fucking with you and your trying to get your unemployment benefits, trying to kind of navigate this legal system more or less on your own. But shout out to Seth for you know, like stepping in and helping out. I know that, yeah, he's been running all over the place, and you know, again, we need as many folks doing that work as we possibly can. But that's an long, rambly way of just sort of bringing us back to the literal fact that, like, you had a goddamn settlement. You need that money, however much it is. And now the NLRB itself is challenging the terms of that settlement that keeps you in limbo and keeps you from getting that money. Like, I mean, so like, is the hope for the NLRB that you'll, I guess, go through this process again, still get your settlement, but the language will be a little bit better in the end? Like, do we even know what that timeline would look like?
Basically, what I think the outcome of the settlement would be would well, the attorneys that were appointed to me, they've been pretty avoidant because they know I am upset and I am tore up about this. I didn't say anything to them that was mean or anything like that, but it's just like, yeah, they're doing this thing now. The appeals process, it's crazy that they hadn't made a decision on the appeal when the NLRB makes decisions very quickly about everything else that has happened in the case, whether it was a subpoena, a motion of summary judgment, stuff like that was filed. And the timeline, so all I knew is that the NLRB had 14 business days from the day of the trial. So that's why the settlement appeal officially went through like right before that 14-day mark. So they got around to it pretty late, trying to drag it out. And then Amazon and their counsel filed their objections to the special appeal, and there hasn't been any word since Amazon's filing. So it's pretty crazy. The NLRB says that their stated goal is that they're here to make workers whole. That's supposed to be their goal. But in reality, if they wanted to tell the truth, they would say their goal is to just merely enforce the policies of whoever the head of the general counsel is and whatever precedent they set. It's not like these attorneys wanted to object to it, and they caught me off guard after the trial because they were saying, "Oh, we're going to have to file a special appeal and all that stuff, so this is going to take maybe quite a long time." And you know, I knew that they would raise objections, but I didn't know that they would have this whole process that drags it out. So really, this was all done without my informed consent.
God, man. Well, and I want to try to, because this is so goddamn frustrating. And I mean, it's like I'm frustrated. I can only imagine how frustrated you are with all of this. And Jesus, I can only hope that this moves quickly, that we get the resolution that we need, that Amazon not be allowed to just keep, doing this to people, because I guess that's like, I guess I want to like bring it back there, that like ultimately we're still all here. We're talking about all of this because Amazon violated your rights. Like they started all this. They are still the ultimate culprits, but like, we need workers like Matt need help. They don't need people getting in their goddamn way. We don't need more of these delays, and we need a process that's more accessible to people who don't have the time, the resources, and what have you, and the institutional support to sort of, just go through this. Like, the experience of this process is very different for Matt than it is for Amazon and its company lawyers. I guess that's the whole point I'm trying to make, right? One side can keep this going for as long as they want. They got more money than God. The other side does not, right? So what do we do with that? And I guess that's where I wanted to sort of end up, man, is like, we are with you. I know that the folks listening to this, the folks who listened to the first episode that we did, are just as frustrated as I am hearing about this, and I know that they'll want to hear about ways that they can support you, that they can support Amazon workers fighting to unionize, that what they can do to sort of I don't know, like, hold Amazon accountable and put pressure where it needs to be put so that, you get the settlement that you deserve. So I wanted to just sort of, by way of rounding out, ask if you could, maybe tell us a little bit about that, where what folks can do to help, where things stand now, and I guess any sort of kind of parting thoughts that you want to leave folks with who maybe, heard that first interview, they're hearing this, because we don't want folks to get discouraged, but we don't want them to we don't want to be Pollyannish about the struggles that we face and all the barriers that are put in our way. So take us out on kind of any final parting thoughts that you got, anything that folks can do, and any final words that you wanted to share with folks out there listening.
As bad as things have gotten, there have been moments that were really empowering for me throughout this. I had comrades that had my back, people that wanted to talk to me and hear my story and to learn from me, and just get help for all these things. And I even joined the DSA Labor Commission and started being a volunteer organizer with EWOC, Emergency Workplace Organizing Center Committee. And I've taken on a couple of cases to help workers organize, I wanted to finally have the energy to organize in a systemic way. And after, the settlement and stuff like that, after that initial day after the hearing, I was pretty empowered because I didn't think things were going to turn out so bad. But again, I don't want people to be discouraged, because if you become really good at your storytelling and you make the right connections with the right comrades, then people will be there for you. People like Max, you donated mutual aid to me several times and had me on your show and did all that good stuff. You were there for me, and a lot of people really were there. A lot of people that donated when I needed it the most, and really got me out of the immediate pickle for a while. So there's these moments that are empowering. In light of things that have been happening in the last week, a bunch of comrades and I got together and we started a group on Instagram where we would all collaborate to make revolutionary kind of content, but especially standing with the people of Palestine. And it feels like, knowing that we're not alone and that so many people all over the world stand with Palestine and are protesting and are getting out there and that are doing the same thing that we're doing, essentially. That's also really empowering. So, and really, I've seen a lot of things. Like, it can be conflicting with unions because, you know, the unions that sort of are involved with making the war machine run are like the ones that organize at Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Halliburton. They're all unionized and essentially with one union, machinists and aerospace workers. And unfortunately, that union, I don't know if they're coerced into doing this because AFL-CIO members have to, as their constitution, they have to stand with all of the political and economic decisions. But the IAM released their statement, which is like, we support Israel, condemn Hamas. Conversation's so centered around Hamas. That's the most annoying thing. These are the Palestinians, and them and anybody they align themselves with, we need to be supportive of. It's a literal genocide going on here. But yeah, I mean, workers have, the fact that the military industrial complex is unionized means that if these workers were radicalized, that they could absolutely stop the war machine from turning. They can do that. We've seen Starbucks trying to sue their union for standing for Palestine. But we as comrades have been doing our part to combat misinformation that is rooted in Zionism, which is going hand in hand with white superiority disorder. So going forward, we're going to continue to struggle. And if you want to find me on social media, it's at Unionize Amazon KY. All of it in one word. You can check out documents over on my link tree and my social media bios, where there's some pretty important things about the Amazon struggle and mutual aid resources. That's one thing. Learn the power of mutual aid. The biggest barrier that I've seen to people wanting to organize is the risk. The risk factor that you're going to get fired. It's going to take food out of your mouth and food out of your children's belly. And if you learn how to organize your community and your mutual aid, that'll also translate to the union struggle, because once people have their needs taken care of, they feel a lot more comfortable organizing. And that's what I feel my role as somebody on EWalk is to do, or as a mentor to any of these other workers, is to sort of eliminate that all of the different tasks you have to do as a labor leader, which would mean like, alleviating that stress, because it's like working 3 or 4 jobs to organize your workplace. And anything we can do to alleviate the stress of that and make sure people's needs are being met in real time, that's what'll get this labor movement on the right track, which I think it is. It has made so much significant progress, but towards a track of making more systemic change.